Shalom. This week's Sedra Chukas. Death is one of the most terrifying aspects of life. Most people fear death and find any connection to death simply awkward. Even visiting a house of mourning can be anxiety-producing for some people. Facing the thought of death, even when not your own, can send people running and do anything to avoid the subject of death. This week's Torah portion brings up the topic of death in a roundabout type of way, and it's important to face the topic and to study it. In this week's Sedra, God commanded anyone who touches a person who was slain by the sword, or who died naturally, or a human bone, or a grave in the open, shall be tameh for 7 days. In his commentary on this verse, the Chizkuni wrote about someone who had direct contact with the bone of a human being or contact with the grave. Of all the types of ritual purity, the one caused by human corpse is the most severe. This is why the sages define a human corpse as the father of all tumah, meaning the highest form of tumah. The reason appears to be, the Chizkuni wrote, that the Torah wishes to ensure that living human beings not spend their time with corpses out of their love for the departed, nor out of the mistaken belief that these corpses could reveal secrets in the afterlife to them, or that they would make idols of the skins of such dead bodies, seeing that the skins could be preserved indefinitely when turned into leather. The Chizkuni continued with his explanation of why we avoid the bones of the dead. Alternatively, he says, people would demean their parents by making utensils out of their skins or bones, the very reverse of revering them. Even if the motivation is simply to treat the dead with respect, the Torah prohibits this as not the way to mourn and show respect for one's ancestors. All of this is forbidden, even if intended to be a proof of how beloved one's parents have been by their children, so that they felt the need to keep part of them around to remind them of having existed. This may be why the bones of donkeys are not tameh and do not confer tameh to others, while the bones of one's parents do confer tumah. The Chizkuni's eye-opening comment is consistent with halacha. Rambam wrote about the prohibition of seeking information from the dead, having to do with the dead more than what's necessary. Anyone who performs a deed in order that a deceased person should come to him and give him information is liable for lashes, the Rambam wrote. And the Rambam summarized the kind of practices that involve the dead and superstition, and he wrote that all of the practices that we read are falsehood and lies, of which the original idolaters deceived Gentile nations in order to lead them after them. It's not fitting for the Jews, who are wise sages, to be drawn into such emptiness that they have to think that they have any value. Whoever believes in anything of this nature in his heart thinks they are true and words of wisdom, but just forbidden by the Torah, is foolish and feeble-minded, the Rambam said. The masters of wisdom and those of perfect knowledge know with clear proof that all of these crafts which the Torah forbade are not reflections of wisdom, but rather emptiness and vanity, which attracted the feeble-minded and caused them to abandon all paths of truth. For these reasons, the Rambam wrote, when the Torah warned against all of these, the Torah did warn against all these empty matters. The Torah has a healthy way of dealing with death. It doesn't permit the superstitious, foolish manner of dealing with death. In the Torah's method, one doesn't fear death or cling to unhealthy ideas. One puts death in its proper place and leads a healthy and productive life. What an important lesson for us all. Shabbat Shalom.